Is joining us today. Welcome back, Barry. Now,
hey, Barry.
You know, you have been talking in the past about investments that have superior relative strength. And you also said that if your advisor doesn't know what that is, find a new advisor. It's still gobbledygook to me.
Yeah.
It really is. Can you explain what that is all about?
This might be a good time to punch TiVo and dial your advisor up and tell him to tune in. He
no
needs
kidding.
to listen to this
Advisors
so
listen
he'll
up here.
know what relative strength happens to be. Relative strength is a fancy word that we use for demand. And the interesting thing is that we are able now, because of technology, to measure the demand of a particular investment and to compare the demands of investments with one another. I liken it to going to a restaurant. If you drive into a new town at noontime and you don't know where you're going to have lunch that day, how would you make your decision? I'll tell you how I'd do it. I'd look for the place that's got all the pickup trucks parked in front of it.
Yeah.
That probably would be the best place to go because all those pickup trucks represent demand. So what we're really looking for is where's the longest line at the restaurant.
Yes, so, I mean, how do you figure all of that out? I mean, fine, that's a great analogy for restaurants, but, I mean, and you know that's true.
I love full parking lots.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, but how does that relate to our investments?
Well, when you think about demand for investments, we're able to measure that now. You'll hear people say there were a certain number of shares traded on the New York Exchange,
Right.
and any particular investment that you may own, they'll tell you how many shares were traded in that. We know how many people are lined up at the window, so to speak, to sell shares and to buy shares. And what we're looking for is a window that has a lot of people lined up in the buy category because that represents demand. That means there are going to be prices going up over time.
Now, when you see to me, when you say shares traded, that's both ends. That's how many are
Right.
let go of, that's how many are bought.
Yes, so what we're measuring is not number of shares traded, but we're measuring the number of people lining up to buy and sell. And if
right.
the buy line is longer than the sell line,
Yeah.
that indicates to us that there is strength going forward. So now what we need to do is measure that strength.
But Barry, don't you also need to get in early because if people have been buying a certain stock for so long, the price is really going to be driven up,
That's
right?
the whole point. And
Yeah.
the relative strength measurement will allow us to do that. Now, here's how that happens.
Yeah.
Technology allows us overnight to compare the relative strength of every investment in the known universe to every other investment in the known universe in a process we call arm wrestling. Let's say that the three of us are going to arm wrestle with one another. And after I've arm wrestled both of you and you've arm wrestled each other, then we will know which one of us won the most contests.
Right. It's like a drum.
I'm probably going to let James be our winner today.
Yeah, right.
So we'll say that among the three of us, relative to the three of us, James is the strongest. Now, he may be the third weakest man in all of Springfield, for all we know. But you think he is? Okay. Well,
Pretty much.
So in order for us to figure that out, here's what we've got to do. He's got to arm wrestle everybody in the studio here. He's got to arm wrestle everyone up in the production and engineering section. He's got to arm wrestle the entire building, and then he's got to start arm wrestling the entire community. And if everyone in the community will arm wrestle for everyone else, at the end of the day, we'll be able to say, this is the person who is the strongest relative to everyone else. That's relative strength.
Gotcha.
So, back to investments. What we do is we take our computers and we measure that waiting line at the buy window and compare all investments to one another. And from that, we're able to determine which investments have the most relative strength, the longest, largest buy line. And we want to detect that early, and then we want to own those investments.
Potential for growth.
So here's what happens. Everybody wants to talk to you about the brains of this new CEO and his plans for expansion and new plants and the fleet of trucks and new computer systems. You know, none of that really matters. What really matters is demand. Are people lined up at the window to buy that investment? If they are, then you find out that ahead of everyone else, you go get in line, and you're able to ride that upward, and when it flips to supply, you sell.
And that's where your investment expert comes
That's
in.
pretty cool.
Barry, thank you very much.
Great to
Always
see you.
good to
Wonderful
see you.
to be with you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
You want more?